Lieutenant Marisol Vance's fingertips hovered above the hollow tactile console as the red alert siren pulsed through the cramped command module of the ISS Caldera. The once orderly rows of status displays now flickered in intermittent bursts, each interruption accompanied by the distant roar of plasma mortars striking Tarvos III's eastern perimeter. Smoke and dust choked the viewport, tinting the toxic sky a sickly orange. Somewhere out there, beyond the reinforced glass, the xenomorphic shapes of the Xylar swarm clawed their way through the colony's hastily erected barricades. "It's too quiet," murmured Chief Engineer Odysseys at Vance's side, voice strained beneath her respirator's hiss. "Sensors show 6 waves of swarm units. We shouldn't still have comms uplink. Or power." Marisol swallowed past the lump, in her throat. The Caldera's fusion reactors had gone offline twice in the past hour. Reactor technicians were on rotation like casualties on an assembly line. "Hold it together," she whispered to herself, fingers dancing across the interface. A cylinder of holodata blinked into existence, the Galactic Council's last transmission, time-stamped 6 standard hours ago. "Lieutenant Vance, your request for reinforcements has been approved. Support en route. ETA, unspecified. Maintain position at all costs. Council out." "Unspecified," she echoed, frustration coiling tight. The Council's bureaucratic overcaution had doomed more frontier outposts than any Xylar hive. When the message had first arrived, relief had flooded her veins. But now, stranded on a world whose very biohazards could fell a veteran soldier in minutes, the vagueness tasted more like abandonment than salvation. A crackle filled the chamber as the long-range scanner found a contact. Vance leaned forward. Fading blips marched across the grid, slow, erratic, decelerating as they passed through Tarvos's radioactive upper atmosphere. "Unknown transits. Large mass signatures," she reported, voice flat. Shadows lengthened on the dust-choked horizon, colossal shapes tumbling earthward, trailing fire and debris. "Not Xylar," muttered Lieutenant Huizar, the Caldera's intelligence officer, adjusting his visor to magnify the incoming vessels. "They're unmarked, and big. So big, they're throwing fragments everywhere." Outside the hatch, a thunderous blast shook the station. Sensors screamed as a chunk of the first craft slammed into the protective shielding, vaporizing in a flash. Alarm klaxons began to wail. On the deck below, Vance heard the guttural roar of her infantry platoon, rifles raised and held at the ready, breath visible through their masks. Every man and woman aboard the Caldera knew the protocol. Enemy ships meant Xylar reinforcements. No quarter, no mercy. The hatch cycle sputtered, then hissed open, and the first Deathworlder stumbled through. Towering nearly 3 meters tall with sinewy limbs wrapped in crystalline carapace, it paused at the threshold. Its multifaceted eyes reflected the red glow of the console, studying Vance with feral curiosity. In one hand it gripped a weapon unlike any her crews had ever seen, a malformed coil of dark metal, thrumming with raw energy that made the hairs on her arms prickle. Through the translation matrix, a single phrase emerged, gravelly and dissonant. "We have come." Marisol's chest tightened as 2 more figures entered, their mandibles clicking in time with the hatch's mechanical hiss. They moved with predatory grace, each step deliberate, the ground quaking beneath their weight. Her platoon's rifles tracked their approach, fingers tensing on triggers. She lifted her hand, forcing herself to remain calm. "Identify yourselves," she called, voice steady even as her heart pounded in defiance of fear. The lead creature tilted its head, considering. Then it spoke again. The translator labored to interpret each guttural word. "You called. We arrived." A flicker of hope ignited in Vance's mind, only to be snuffed out by the raw intensity in the creature's gaze. These were not the polished peacekeepers of the remnant fleet. They were hunters bred on worlds where every breath was a contest for survival. And now, on Tarvos III, they had chosen to answer humanity's plea for aid. As the hatch sealed behind, the newcomers, the Caldera, trembled once more, the distant rumble of Xylar engines growing louder. From within the command module's haze, Marisol Vance inhaled slowly, steadying herself for the storm to come. Reinforcements had arrived, but whether they brought salvation or annihilation remained to be seen. Nightfall on Tarvos III fell like a stone, sudden, suffocating, and streaked with the eerie green glow of the planet's twin moons. Lieutenant Marisol Vance watched the Deathworlders form ranks in the shattered plaza outside the ISS Caldera's eastern gate. Between them and the onslaught of Xylar swarm drones, her own soldiers crouched behind hastily erected cover, sandbags, scrap metal, and the jagged bones of raised outbuildings. Captain Ray Navarro's voice crackled over the comm channel. "All units, hold fire. Let them engage first." His tone was firm but uneasy. He knew as well as Vance that the Deathworlders answered to no one, yet their wrath was the Caldera's only hope. The translators, jury-rigged from ancient council, Tech struggled at first with the Deathworlders' guttural dialect. Their clicks and roars coalesced into a jagged message. "Swarm here, we crush." It took several repetitions before the phrase registered in broken standard galactic. When it did, Navarro's face twisted into a grim half-smile. At ease, somewhat. Beyond the perimeter, the ground trembled. A low mechanical screech rose to a chorus as hundreds of Xylar constructs poured from the scarred wasteland. Tall, spidery machines bristling with razor-sharp limbs, their carapaces suffused with nanite-driven weapon systems. Their eyes glowed, an unnatural violet, and in unison they advanced, a relentless tide of steel and flesh. At the signal, a guttural roar that vibrated through the air, the Deathworlders charged. They moved with terrifying speed and precision, leaping over barricades to collide with the Xylar ranks. Energy coils on their forearms erupted in brilliant arcs. Weapons unlike any human design discharged boiling bolts of plasma that seared through mechanical exoskeletons like hot knives through foam. The first clash was a shockwave of sound and fury. Swarm drones scattered under Deathworlder blows, their nanite-woven flesh unspooling in threads of molten metal. Where the Deathworlders lashed out, the air itself seemed to scream. Human soldiers, rifles raised, watched in stunned silence as alien mercenaries carved a path of destruction. Vance knelt behind a stack of crates, heart pounding. She keyed her mic. "Hold your fire until they're almost on top. Aim for exposed joints." Her own troops obeyed, picking off surviving Xylar units with precision rounds that shattered circuitry and sent sparks raining across the dusty street. Nearby, Private Miku Tanaka let loose a burst from her pulse rifle. A Xylar warrior collapsed, its biomechanical form twitching. Tanaka exhaled, trying to steady her trembling hands. They're actually making a dent," she whispered. "Just wait," said Corporal Jose Aranda, eyes wide beneath his helmet. "You haven't seen anything yet." Minutes bled into an eternity of roaring engines, energy discharges, and the sickening crunch of chitinous limbs fracturing. Vance felt a strange mixture of horror and gratitude as Deathworlders, towering brutes in crystalline armor, stripped Xylar warriors limb from limb, then tossed the broken husks aside. One particularly massive Deathworlder, its armor etched with runes of its own tribe, hoisted a throng of Xylar combiner bots and smashed them together until they fused into an unrecognizable mass. When the smoke cleared, the plaza was a ruin of carnage. Dozens of Deathworlders stood battered but unbeaten amid piles of smoldering Xylar carcasses. Human soldiers emerged from cover, scanning the field with disbelief. "Casualties?" Navarro's voice crackled over Vance's earpiece. "Minimal," she replied, glancing at her squad. "We lost 3, and they got 50 swarm units." She hesitated. But at what cost? Farther off, a Deathworlder chieftain, its crest, tinged with bioluminescent veins, strode toward Navarro and Vance, each step measured yet heavy. Its mandibles clicked, then through the translator came words heavy with finality. "Battle 1. We feed. Then leave." Navarro's jaw clenched. "You'll stay until the last Xylar is dead," he said, surprising both Vance and himself. "No one hunts on our world without permission." The chieftain's multifaceted eyes flared. It emitted a low growl that vibrated through the ground. After a tense beat, the translator spit out its response. "Contract paid. Dead stay dead. It's more than I asked for, Navarro muttered, nodding curtly. Thank you. As the Deathworlders began to methodically clear the field, harvesting Xylar technology, collecting biosamples and stitching wounds with alien salves, Vance felt a prickle of unease. Their efficiency was unmatched, their brutality unquestionable. In the distance, the shattered bodies of Xylar drones still twitched with nanite regeneration protocols. Left unchecked, those nanites could rebuild new horrors in hours. Vance murmured into her mic. Corman, prepare medical tents at the south gate. We'll need triage. Her voice faltered when she saw a Deathworlder lift a wounded comrade's shattered limb, crushing it between its armored fingers until the bones snapped. The creature's roar of rage echoed in her ears, part mourning, part fury. Navarro placed a hand on her shoulder. They fight like demons, he said softly, but demons we can't do without. She exhaled, watching as the Deathworlders retreated to their makeshift encampment, dragging the evening's bounty. The twin moons glinted off their crystalline armor, casting jagged shadows across the ravaged plaza. In the hush that followed, only one thought echoed in Vance's mind. Humanity had forged an unholy alliance born of necessity, and the true price of victory was only beginning to reveal itself. Weeks passed on Tarvus III, and the dust of battle settled into uneasy calm. The Deathworlders held the eastern quadrant of the colony like a dark fortress, their jagged encampment growing daily as scavenged alloy and bioorganic spires sprouted from the red soil. Inside the ISS caldera, the survivors busied themselves with reconstruction, sealing barricades, reactivating the fusion grid, and patching the hollows in the domed habitat where shells and spores had shattered glass. Lieutenant Vance found no respite in routine. Reports trickled in of missing colonists. A supply runner vanished on the southern road. A pair of miners failed to return from the iron fields under the twin moons. Civilian logs recorded strange footprints, three-toed, deep as a Deathworlder's, but no witness dared claim more than a glimpse of towering silhouettes at the tree line. Rumors spread through the mess hall like wildfire. Livestock found gutted, granaries stripped of their flesh, children's toys discovered amidst piles of bone shards. Vance's gut clenched. She and Captain Navarro drove out at dusk to investigate. A mining camp 3 kilometers beyond the eastern barriers. The camp's comm tower lay twisted, its array smashed. Tents had been slashed. Between 2 support beams they found the body of a young prospector, eyes hollow, chest cavity carved in neat arcs. No Xylar residue, no nanites. Navarro knelt, brushing the crimson soil aside. This, he said, voice low, is Deathworlder work. That night, beneath the sickly glow of emergency lamps, Vance laid her findings before the War Council. Civilians' testimony, motion tracker logs, drone footage of immense shapes stalking the scrubland. The council envoy, pale and austere, frowned. They delivered us from annihilation, he reminded her. Collateral losses were unfortunate but expected. A murmur rose from the miners' delegates, gaunt faces etched with terror. Our families are next, one pleaded. We gave them our lives, and they repay us with slaughter. Navarro rose, steel in his tone. Without the Deathworlders, the Xylar would have consumed this entire colony. Their methods are brutal but effective. If we drive them away, we are defenseless. Arguments clashed like energy blades. Moral duty versus survival. The sanctity of life versus the pragmatism of war. Vance found herself torn, heart pounding beneath her chest plate. She recalled the Deathworlder chieftain's promise. We feed, then leave. And wondered if any contract truly bound creatures born to hunt. Unable to reach consensus, the council broke for the night. Vance retired to the medbay, checking the status of casualties and reviewing the morgue's data. A chart on her holo display blinked red. Pattern of missing personnel. Increases within 5 kilometers of Deathworlder zone. She leaned closer. Each dot marked a life erased. A shiver ran down her spine. The true cost of victory was not measured in bodies of the Xylar, but in the silence of those who no longer spoke. Before sleep claimed her, she resolved on a dangerous truth. To protect the colony, she would have to face the Deathworlders directly and demand a reckoning for every life taken. Tomorrow, under the pale light of Tarvos's dawn, she would cross into the lion's den and pray that humanity's fragile alliance did not dissolve into bloodshed. The twin moons hung low and swollen over Tarvos's eastern wastes, casting an otherworldly light on the jagged spires of the Deathworlder encampment. Lieutenant Marisol Vance tightened the straps of her armor as she and Captain Navarro approached. The perimeter barrier, a wall of scavenged Xylar plating reinforced with barrow alloy beams. Behind it, the Deathworlders stirred like a nest of armored locusts, their crystalline carapaces flashing in the moonlight. Navarro raised his hand, signaling the advance team to halt. Vance keyed her comms. All units, stand by. We make this peaceful, if they'll have it. She let the words hang in the air, half hopeful, half doubtful. The barrier's hatch groaned as it swung open. 5 Deathworlders emerged, each nearly twice the height of a human, their mandibles clicking in measured rhythm. Between them stood the chieftain, its bioluminescent crest pulsing with cold blue light. Behind their stances, Vance spotted dozens, more weapons bristling, eyes locked on her. She stepped forward. I come on behalf of the Caldera. We know of the missing, our people, our livestock. You answered our plea for reinforcements, but now Tarvos bleeds. We demand justice. The chieftain cocked its head. Through the translator, it spoke. We harvested for strength. All life feeds the strong. Its voice, amplified through the device, felt like gravel in Vance's chest. Navarro's grip tightened on his rifle. Your contract was to destroy the Xylar, he said, not to prey on innocents. A guttural growl rumbled from the Deathworlder ranks. The chieftain's crest brightened. Contract paid. We owe no more. Vance exchanged a glance with Navarro. Behind them, dozens of human soldiers lay prone, weapons trained. Ahead, Deathworlders bristled with anticipation. The air pulsed with imminent violence. Before either side could fire, a deafening roar split the night. From the eastern horizon came the thunder of descending Xylar reinforcements, tall, skeletal titans crowned with pulse cannons. Their advance was relentless, engines thrumming like war drums. Navarro cursed. We can't fight them and the Deathworlders at once. Vance's mind raced. In that moment of dire necessity, she seized the chieftain's gaze. Stand with us one last time, she called, voice firm. Help drive out the swarm, and then we will settle this properly. Tarvos must live. A tense silence stretched, broken only by the distant clatter of Xylar approaches. The chieftain emitted a low, exploratory click. Around them, the Deathworlders' weapons dimmed, neither charging for humans nor seething at Xylar. Its translator crackled. Temporary alliance. Hunt Xylar, then feast. Navarro nodded sharply. Move! With a monstrous roar, the Deathworlders surged forward alongside human lines. Energy blasts and ballistic rounds tore into the Xylar titans as Deathworlder, fangs and claws struck for their joints. Vance fired her pulse rifle into an advancing swarmwalker, then dropped behind a fallen beam as a geyser of nanite-infused gore splashed overhead. Side by side, human and Deathworlder warriors clashed with the biomechanical monstrosities. The battlefield became a symphony of violence, the shriek of plasma, the crunch of armor, the unearthly bellows of the Deathworlder war cry. Vance darted forward, planting charges at the base of a giant Xylar leg. It toppled with an earth-shaking crash, sending up a pillar of dust that momentarily blinded her. When the dust settled, the last of the Titans lay smoldering. Human troops and Deathworlders alike panted in the moonlit hush. Vance stumbled to her feet, scanning for survivors. All around the fallen, friend and foe lay scattered. She caught Navarro's eye, both of them acknowledging the brutal unity they'd achieved. The chieftain approached, its bioluminescent veins pulsing slower now, reflecting a strange fatigue. Through the translator. Swarm ends. Contract closed. Vance swallowed a tide of conflicting emotions. Relief, grief, anger. So does that mean you'll leave? For a long moment the Deathworlder merely clicked. Then it rasped, leave, or fight. It stepped back, motioning for its warband to follow. As the Deathworlders filed past the boundary line, crystalline armor glinting beneath the moons, Vance raised her hand in salute. Navarro rested a hand on her shoulder. We survived, but the cost. His voice trailed off into the night. Vance watched the alien warriors disappear into the wasteland. Every footprint they left was a reminder. Alliances born in blood often demand the same in return. On Tarvos III, victory had come at a savage price, but the planet lived. And as dawn's pale light touched the horizon, she vowed to rebuild, not just walls and reactors, but a covenant that would protect humanity without devouring its soul.